Mehrdad Khonsari is a former Iranian diplomat. He joins us now live from London. Thank you so much for your time this evening. Now, Pompeo speaks about no preconditions with regards to a meeting, but really there are still many conditions the US wants from Iran in terms of changing its actions and policies. What's your take on this?
Well, I think that the ultimate theme that comes from Pompeo's latest talk is a bit better than the kind of threats that the United States has been making in the last couple of weeks. I mean, you have to look at the statements and comments coming out of the US in the last 2 weeks to know how much they have changed, from military threats to all kinds of threats, and now the offer of talks without preconditions, they say, but of course preconditions that have conditions. So it's very confusing for people in Tehran to know what it is that the US really wants to do, or what is the avenue that they wish to pursue. There is no question that the Iranians themselves are in desperate need of discussions, because, you know, today is a special time in Iran. This is the 30th anniversary right now of the death of Ayatollah Khomeini and the accession of Ayatollah Khamenei to the position of supreme leader. The economy is in tatters. So the Iranians understand that the economic situation, which is the #1 priority of any government, cannot be improved unless the sanctions are lifted. The sanctions cannot be lifted unless there is a compromise with the United States. And there can be no compromise with the United States unless there are talks with the United States. But they cannot enter into negotiation from a position that they are simply dictated to, and that is what's holding things back. So it's an optimistic call by Pompeo, the fact that he offers talks instead of military threats, but it has to be nuanced and made to look a little bit more genuine and a little less disingenuous than what it is at this time.
Mr. Khonsari, as you've just said, the economy is of vital importance to Iran, to Iran's people. It's currently under sanctions, even more sanctions from the US. What's life like for ordinary Iranians?
Well, life is much more expensive. There is greater unemployment. There is greater inflation. The national currency is taking a dive. And general conditions of life has become that much more difficult for the people of Iran. But you have to understand that irrespective of all these things, the situation in Iran, let's say, as compared to Venezuela, is a much, much better. And there's a long way to go for the situation, the economic situation in Iran, to become like what it is, let's say, in Venezuela, just to give you a comparison. But obviously, that is not the standard that people want to judge the situation by. People want relief. People want hope for a better future, better life, better conditions for their children and for future generations of Iranians. So those priorities are there. The government, and you have to bear in mind that when Mr. Pompeo speaks of 40 years, there has been a lot of provocation coming from Iran in the course of the last, let's say, at least 35 years, I would say. But since the advent of the Rouhani government, they have tried to be more conciliatory. They reached a nuclear agreement. They sat down. They made compromises. It was the US that left those negotiations. So it's very difficult for them to enter into a new set of negotiations, having left the set of negotiations in which they had reached an agreement to which they have kept, and then being accused of all kinds of things. So I think, as I said, there is a necessity on the part of the Americans to try to diffuse the very tensions that they have given rise to through themselves and through their allies, as witnessed by what the Saudis and the Emiratis have been doing in the last few days with the conferences in Mecca. And the Iranians want these negotiations. So it's the general theme is good, that both sides want to talk, but they just have to nuance it in a way that it doesn't look as it's a one-sided concession by the Iranians coming into the room and submitting to everything that the Americans want. Because that won't happen.
We'll have to leave it there. Mehrdad Khonsari, thanks so much for your time this evening, live to us there from London.